I know that the reason that these spirits have a bad rap is because they are powerful and because
Yes.
they stand for individuality and freedom and liberation. And people that understand this are not easy to control. And I know that that is by and large the whole reason for organized religion, because they want to control what you feel, what you think, where you spend your money, how you spend it, and how you feel about yourself. And they want you to be just like the rest of them. They want to have the power. They want you to follow along. And that's really like the total opposite of what my spiritual path stands for.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back or welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, I am back with another interview video for the Religion to Occult series that I've been hosting, and I am so grateful to everyone who has been willing to be a part of this series, a part and share their stories openly, about their spiritual beliefs growing up religious and how those beliefs have evolved, because truly my intention with all of this is to inspire other people on their path, wherever they are and whatever path you follow. It can be, it's a journey to evolve into one's spiritual beliefs, and whether or not we all end up in the same place or similar places, like, I do find that it is helpful to learn from other people and hear their stories at times, especially if you can relate to sort of breaking that mold and that programming that comes with growing up religious, if you did grow up religious. So today we are here with JD Temple. And so, JD, you, from what I've seen of your YouTube channel, have, more of an occult, well, not more of an occult, a very occult, spiritual belief system now. But did you grow up religious? And if so, what religion did you grow up in? And go ahead and share what you shared. Feel free to share on that as much as you want.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I definitely did. After my parents got divorced when I was like 7, Um, my mother went a different path than my father. I mainly got exposed to like the Presbyterian church and the Southern Baptist church with her. I really wasn't that involved. We really just kind of went to church on Sundays and that was it. But my father got very immersed in the Mormon Church and the LDS Church. And so that was something where, we were involved like probably 4 or 5 days a week, had the missionaries and other people, leaders in the church over our house all the time. So that was definitely pretty immersive. So that was really my first real experience with actually like really living a religious lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for probably a period of about 5 years or so. And then, so I think for maybe like 8 to 13 or so. And then later in life, after I had gotten married, my ex-wife, she had been Catholic since birth, and we had made an agreement when we got married that our kids would be raised in that church. And I kind of felt like, I was okay with it. I really didn't care one way or the other, really. I had experienced organized religion as a child, but I was just kind of like, okay, I'll go with you. But once we started having children, I started taking, my role as kind of like the leader of the household more seriously. And I kind of figured like, well, I really need to be like the spiritual leader of the house. So I think it's important that I do get more involved in what it is that she's doing and what my kids are going to be doing. So I decided to go ahead and do like the 2 year process of converting to Catholicism, and I did that. I guess I was probably about like 27 or 28 years old at that time. And, after I had converted, I started going to the Wednesday mass and either Saturday or Sunday mass, started like reading scriptures in the mass, as kind of part of the whole thing every week. And I was really, immersing myself into that as much as I could, going to like different meetings, like men's group meetings and things during the week. And I did the whole Crescio weekend, brainwashing weekend there, and that was pretty intense. And it's odd. It's like I think that's really at like when things started getting crazy for me after that Crescio weekend, I really felt like more connected to it than I ever had. But then that's when these spirits started really coming into my life like hot and
Mm,
heavy. And really it felt like they were terrorizing me.
mm-hmm.
I was having just the wildest things happen every single night during the day. I was feeling them, I was seeing them. It was like actual like poltergeist type of activity. I could feel them sit down on my bed and like watch my bed like
Mm,
sink down, like the mattress sink down, like an actual person had just sat there.
wow.
Things of that nature. And like it almost seemed too that like that my ex-wife was like being possessed at certain moments and she was
Mm,
like asleep and unaware of it and all this weird stuff was happening. And so I really started to like try to combat it the best I could. I was like getting holy water and saying different psalms and like trying to, cleanse my bedroom and cleanse my home and cleanse myself and cleanse her, like doing like anything that I could think of. And it just got more intense and more intense. And we finally went to the church and we spoke to the deacon that married us that she had known like all of her life. And we told him what was going on. And he just really kind of brushed it off and just thought that maybe I was having some kind of like stress related mental problems or that I was imagining things. And he
mm,
really just didn't take it seriously. And I was like left on my own again to try to figure this out.
mm.
And so, yeah, it was really difficult and it was really scary.
Yeah.
But it got to the point as I was doing research online to try to figure out like what exactly is going on here, what am I dealing with? I began to um, run across um, different literature and different videos and things that were like kind of opening my eyes to what these infernal divine spirits, what these demons really are and what they're here to do and what their purpose is in our life and like what magic is all about and what black magic and witchcraft is all about and how that was connected. And it kind of got to a point where it hit a critical mass. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to go take the stance. If you can't beat them, join them and like see what happens there.
Mm,
And so I began to try to make allies with them instead of trying to fight them. And as soon as that happened, pretty much all of the craziness, it just ceased right away. All of the anxiety and all of the fear,
mm.
everything that they were doing, which it makes sense to me now, they were scaring the crap out of me just to get my attention finally, to really get my attention and to really kind of rattle me to a point to where I could really see what their true intentions were.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. Yeah. That's already so intriguing. I'm trying to narrow my questions down for you. So, excuse me, just to say for those watching this, we did start where and JD shared a little bit more and the sound was all wonky, so we are doing this a second time, so there were some things that he said that I may address right now that just want you to bring up back up. But what exactly were the spirits, or who were the spirits that were contacting you at this
Mhm.
time?
So the first one really was Lilith, and I came to realize that not by really what just by what was happening, but she started manifesting to me and speaking to me telepathically. And this was really one of the, I mean, I had many of these encounters, but it was scary, but there's also a component to it that was absolutely mind-boggling and amazing and absolutely pleasurable to the nth degree.
Sure.
This would happen to where, and this is wild now. It gets a little graphic, but I'm not going to like take it to any of those links, but just so that you can understand what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I owned a business, and so my ex-wife she would go to bed before me, and I would go to bed, like 2 in the morning, something like that, maybe. And I could already feel as I was in the living room working that it always felt like something was watching me. And I could feel like this like unease feeling. And it just really felt like I had eyes on me. And I was like, what the hell? This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go into our bedroom and like as soon as I'd crossed the threshold, this like huge heavy wave of anxiety would hit me and I was just like whoa, like what is going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I could always sense it the strongest like over in the corner of the room right over beside where my nightstand was. It would like usually be like in that corner and it would
Mm-hmm.
stay in that corner. But one night I was going to bed and I was getting ready to like climb in there and I touched the mattress and it was like vibrating, like to the point to where it seemed like there was some kind of like mechanical machine like shaking it, and I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
what the hell is going on, right? And my ex-wife is there like laying on her back sound asleep and I kind of like moved my hand towards her and like the closer it got to her, the more intense this vibrating was getting. And like she was totally passed out. And like, this is really freaky.
Mm-hmm.
So I put my hand on her stomach and
Mm-hmm.
it felt like when a woman is pregnant and she has a baby inside of her, I felt like a little fist like push up on my hand and it freaked me out. I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
what the hell, man? You're right.
Whoa.
And so I woke her up, and I'm shaking her, trying to wake her up. And I'm like, dude, like, what's going on? And like, she had no idea. She's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, dude, some crazy stuff was happening here.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of started like that. And then, like, the next night, I go and I get into bed. So, like, literally, I had just laid down, laying down on my back and pulled the covers up on me. I'm laying there, put my head on the pillow. And then it felt like a person just sat down on the edge of the bed on my side. And like I heard the mattress creak. I could see it and feel it like
Oh my God.
weighed down by something. And I'm like freaking out. Like my anxiety, like fight or flight's like kicking in, and I'm just like
Right.
frozen, like, holy shit, like what is happening here?
Mm-hmm.
And then it felt like whatever it was just like fell over, like really heavily, like onto the bed. And then it felt like a serpentine energy started coiling up around my ankles and it started moving up my body. And
Whoa.
as soon as it got to my thighs, it felt like a tidal wave of the most like intense orgasmic energy that you've ever felt in your life to like take your breath away absolutely would just like a wave crashing. It would crash onto me and then it would like move back down and then it would come back and crash again. And it just would do this. And I'm just kind of like laying there frozen, being like, what the hell is going
Right.
on? Like I was scared, and it was
Yeah.
like, it was one of those things where it was like, this feels like amazing, but at the same time, I'm like,
Like, what's
this,
happening?
yeah, right. And like my mind's telling me like this can't be good. Like what the hell is going on here, right?
Yeah.
And so I would usually like literally get up out of the bed and run out of the room. And But every time I would go back and get in bed, it would just keep happening again. And
Hmm.
every night, it just like clockwork, like as soon as I got into bed, it would start every single time. And so, like that's when I really got into like, I'm gonna fight this thing, like
Mm.
because it's affecting her too. She doesn't even know it, as far
Hmm.
as I know. And if she does, she's not telling me, and like it's happening to me too. And so like, what's going on here? So that was happening just every single night, all the time. And it got to the point to where every time I would go into the bedroom, even during the day, I would feel this heavy energy and I could feel like a presence in the corner, like it was just there, like waiting for me.
Right.
And so I wouldn't go in there much.
Hmm.
And we had this like little like weird lounge sofa thing that I had acquired from this manor house at a winery from doing a job there. Really expensive, nice piece of furniture, and like you could actually sleep on it. And for whatever reason, I wasn't sleeping in the bed that night, and I slept on this thing. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was like a sleep paralysis type of incident. And my head was turned to the side, so all I could see was the wall. But I felt this like heavy presence upon me. I could feel its hands on my shoulders. I could feel its knees like pushing into my thighs.
Mm.
And I was getting these telepathic visions of something almost like a werewolf or something, like a big, hairy, strong beast that just had me subdued,
Hmm.
and it was just holding me there. And then it spoke to me telepathically, and it told me, like that. Well, basically, it asked me a question. It said, "What are you gonna do now?" And then I
Mm.
couldn't even answer it because I couldn't speak, I couldn't talk. And as soon as it said, "What are you gonna do now?" it was just gone, and it was
Wow.
over. And I was like, "What the hell just happened?" Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that happened again, and later I came to find out that on one occasion it was Asmodeus, on another occasion it was Azazel.
Mm.
Then I began to start having like a lot of poltergeist type activity at my business and at my home, and
Mm.
things were like touching me and like poking me, pulling my hair, pulling on my shirt, doing all this kind of thing. And that was actually Belial. He told me later that
Mm.
basically he was putting me through a sparring simulation, and that he was basically like my Mr. Miyagi, and he was trying to like create scenarios where I was going to need to spiritually protect myself and fight back and become stronger through this
Mm.
experience. And that's when it got to a really crazy point, before he really revealed himself to me, before the other ones really revealed their identities to me.
Mm.
That's when I was trying to fight back, started researching and seeing like, whoa, like what this is all about, what magic is all about. I was led to different literature online. I was led to E.A. Wedding's channel, Become a Living God,
Mm.
which I later, became a part of for probably about 4 or 5 years, and did a lot of writing, did rituals for hire for them, and made videos and all that stuff myself, which was kind of wild.
Mm.
But I stumbled across him and started to really like understand what was happening. And I was like, whoa, they're like showing me exactly what this is.
Mm.
They're leading me to all of the information just like I needed to really help me to see like,
Mm.
this is what you're going through. This is what this is about. We're not here to hurt you, but this is a huge initiation process here.
Yeah.
and like you need to fully embrace it. For whatever reason, I didn't understand why then still at that point, but it makes
Right.
sense to me now, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's, I ran into like started reading Michael W. Ford's
Mm-hmm.
different publications on Lucifer and just different aspects of demonology and different spirits, Hecate, Lilith.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of started to like the path just started to kind of open up and unfold for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to, practice and made a temple in my basement and started really diving into it head first because of these situations. My
Yeah.
ex-wife was not happy about it, that's for sure.
I bet. Yeah. Okay, wow. All right. So so prior to okay, well I know before we started re-recording you had touched on like um how Catholicism and your time in the Catholic Church was really sort of what opened you up to seeing like the ritual side of things, like the occult, with the transubstantiation, like the turning the body and blood and or the wine and bread into the body and blood, and how ritualistic Catholicism is and all that. And so that's a great doorway, first of all, a great segue into the occult world. But before before that, like throughout your younger life, did you ever have any sort of like paranormal experiences like that? Were you like a sensitive child or anything, or was these encounters, this communication with these spirits, was that like the first thing that you received? I mean, I know also that you said on your YouTube that you're a medium, and I would assume that this stuff happens to people with that ability, most likely, psychic or psychic mediums and people that are open to receiving it, or even if they don't know that they are yet, if that happens, like odds are you probably have medium abilities. But yeah, but did or was there something that, yeah, was that like the first one? Did it happen all at once, or did you have any sort of experiences before that didn't make this? I mean, it's still a crazy experience. Don't get me wrong, but maybe it wasn't like, oh shit, like what is this, or did you know like that this was a spirit, even if you didn't know what spirit, kind of the question. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, growing up, I had quite a few instances of hearing ghosts speak, of seeing apparitions, like really just being aware that there was interaction from the spiritual realm here, from the 5D here in this 3D realm. I was definitely aware of that. And I was always highly interested in, anything that was dark, anything that was witchy, anything, horror movies, cemeteries. Halloween was always my favorite time of the year, and it still
Yep.
is. I was really just drawn to all of those kinds of things. And, it was kind of wild, like growing up in the 80s, we had Masters of the Universe and we had She-Ra and we had the Smurfs with Gargamel as a sorcerer and his Cat Azrael and like just everything was like so, and even Disney stuff, even, back then and still today. I mean, it's all has this undertone of like witchcraft and sorcery. And I just think that there was just all types of things in my life that was like subtly opening the door more and more. And I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't really aware that that is what was happening, but I always had like inclinations to be very interested, especially in ghosts, like
Mm-hmm.
when I was in elementary school and middle school, like every time we went to the library, I was getting books on ghosts. I was getting books on the Bermuda Triangle. I was getting books on the Loch Ness Monster.
Mm-hmm.
All of these kinds of like weird type of subject matter was like what I really loved. I didn't really read many books, but when I was in middle school, I ran across this author, John Bellairs, and like all of his books are all about witches and sorcerers and all of this kind of thing. And it's just like I didn't understand what it was, but for some reason I was just drawn to it, like there was something in me that I didn't understand yet, but I knew that like, wow, this is like something that I really like for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really put it together, of course, when I was younger that I actually had any kind of abilities. It just kind of seemed like weird things happened.
Mm-hmm.
But like I know like probably when I was like 11, we went to the mall with my nana and my cousin, and she was like, oh, we went to like Walden Books, and she's like, okay, go ahead and pick out something. And I went and got like a deck of tarot cards, and I'm like, I don't know what these are. They just look cool. I feel drawn to it. So I'm gonna get them. I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm gonna do with them. And I don't even think that I even did anything with those except for just acquire them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like all of these like little subtle cues were like already coming in. And even though I really wasn't aware of it, it was happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
always been happening. It's been unfolding more and more like throughout my life. And
Yeah.
as I got older and went through different periods of my life, I would be more interested in sports, playing ice hockey, playing inline hockey, playing football, chasing girls, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that kind of more esoteric part of my life, got pushed to the back burner, in
Mm-hmm.
many ways. But, I was still always having experiences and always like feeling strange things, but I really wasn't focusing on it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like during that interim time of not actively seeking that knowledge or have it actively coming to you, that there are other processes taking place, that are still propelling you on that spiritual path if you have a life that's sort of focused on spirituality or occult to some extent, which it very much seems like you do. Whether or not we connect those dots at the time, we usually always see it in hindsight, and it's like, oh, well, all this happened so that I could get to this point and then kind of propel even more forward on my spiritual path, with whatever experiences are coming next. So, when you were in the church, I'm gonna back up a little bit because I so want to dive more into like where you're at now and stuff, but I want to kind of touch on a little
Mhm.
more history. So when you were in the church at all, whether it was the Baptist or the Presbyterian or the years of Mormonism that you had, or Catholicism, did you ever truly believe any of the teachings of the church? And, like I know you were very active and mentioned like wanting to be a spiritual role model for your children. And I think that's great, but was there a genuine sense of belief, or was it just kind of like talking the talk, walking the walk, and doing, what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first time, and I think maybe the most profound experience and where I did believe that something was actually happening. I mean, like there's some very mysterious power in the Mormon Church.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely felt something when my head was anointed with oil and I had like three different elders that had, I think, the Melchizedek priesthood or the Aaronic priesthood, one of the two. They did a blessing on me, and I could feel that like literally my whole body was vibrating, and I was like, "Holy shit, something's going on
Mm.
here." And then I think when I was 12, I got to go to the temple in DC, and you're only allowed access to a certain part of it until you're 18 and you're, I don't know if they call it a confirmation or whatever it is, but you're not allowed to go through the rest of it. But we were allowed access to the baptismal font area. And I did this thing called it's baptisms for the dead. And they take you into the font and they baptize you one after the next, I think for like at least 10 different deceased people.
Mm.
They are using, your physical body as the vehicle and calling upon their name for them to either accept or deny the baptism that's being performed for them after death.
Hmm.
And I definitely had some pretty wild spiritual experiences during that. So I knew that there was something happening. I mean, as far as really believing in the whole story of how everything went down and like the mythology, if you will, of like the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon. I don't know that I necessarily believed it all. It was just something that I was supposed to believe. So I was trying my best to be a good boy and just be like,
Yeah.
okay. And that was kind of like the same thing. Like when I got into the Catholic Church, like I really desperately wanted this to work, and I got to the point to where like I really wanted to be spiritually nourished. I was definitely at that point looking for something, and I just knew that no matter how involved I had gotten, everything that I was trying to do, I just felt nothing. I felt no
Mm.
connection. I felt emptier than ever. And I felt like as I looked around the congregation, it really just seemed to me and it hit me that these are very broken people that feel absolutely lost, and they're putting everything into something that is not giving anything back to them. And like that is really the notion that I got, and that is how I felt, like
Yeah.
the focus on just being ashamed and feeling guilty for just being a human and not having any access to God except through a priest or through what they were doing, that you weren't worthy or good enough to do and have the things that they had, and just basically like go through these motions and feel what we say you should feel. And I was trying like
Mm.
crazy, but
Yeah.
just it wasn't, I just couldn't find anything there,
Yeah.
I really couldn't.
Yeah. And it's always kind of interesting to me how many, like, if people really do find spiritual nourishment there, and I'm sure some people do, but I feel like a lot of the majority don't, in at least the churches that I grew up in and stuff. Really quick side note, you are very, very dark, which matches your vibe
Oh,
entirely, but
nice.
but if
It got
yeah.
dark in here. Yeah,
Oh,
there we
cool,
go.
cool, cool. There you go. Now, yeah, now you're not
Uh,
so like in the shadows, which is
Cool.
cool. Yeah, but all right, cool. There you go. Now people can see your face because it was like kind of getting to the point where like your eyes were getting dark and like your shirt was blending in with the background and stuff. So cool. All
Sorry
right.
about that.
No, no, no. It's okay. It was cool. All right. Um. Yeah. So that's I can relate to that. Just with like never always wanting more of a connection in church, than I felt ever, but it really wasn't ever there for me, like that spiritual nourishment, like you said. I wanted to feel God. I wanted to feel something, and I didn't ever feel it. I felt happy seeing my friends at church. I thought like the architecture of the style of churches we went to was beautiful, but I never, with the experiences I've had since then, I've profoundly felt something higher than myself, whether it's God or spirit or whatever, and that was always what I was looking for in the church and never found. And so it seems it's really curious because your story so far, it seems like these spirits, that contacted you, you started going down this one path, maybe because it's like the religious path, because like that's what well, that's what people do. That's what we're supposed to do, like, and especially if you're married to somebody who is Catholic, and with that, like, you're usually one converts to the spouse's religion if in Catholicism. And it really seems like these spirits were like, nope, like, come back here. We're gonna pluck you right out of that, and here's your journey. So I'm, let's see. So you didn't really believe as much as you wanted to those teachings, but is so do you still follow any form of Catholicism? Do you still go to church, or do you have any involvement with religion at this point in time?
No, not at all. I mean, my three daughters do.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And my ex-wife, I mean, they still go to mass like every Saturday or Sunday. And I
Mm-hmm.
think my daughters participate in the mass, as like greeters and like altar service and things of that nature. But I have not been probably in like 12 years, I would say.
Yeah.
It's been a long, long time since I've ever set foot in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I wouldn't go. I mean, I would definitely go to, support other people in my family. If they invited me to go, I would go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something that it's like, like it's not something like I don't have hatred for it. I don't like
Sure.
what it stands for because I feel like I know what's truly going on and I know what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it's a major misdirection and it's certainly something, it's it's presenting itself to be something that it's not. So I should definitely have a disdain for it, but I'm not going to say that I take it to that level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything against any religious people. I get along with everybody and I respect everybody's opinion. I respect everybody's path.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look down on anyone that practices any of these religions or believes in these things. I mean, to each their own. And if it works for you, great.
Yeah.
My stepfather and my mother, I mean, they're pretty religious. And they have a pretty spectacular life
Mm-hmm.
and they have definitely built a life that people would only dream of and they've done that through this religion. I mean, I have to say, like, for some people that is their path and it works for them, but for me
Mm-hmm.
it just wasn't something that did work for me. And I mean, I tried
Yeah.
many times and I tried to like dive into it and to really dig deep and try to find something in there that I just could not find. So, I think that there's certain things, I mean, I do believe in past lives. I do believe in different incarnations, and I do believe that this is something that I did in the past. I do believe that my ancestors
Mm.
did this in the past, and I think that it's in my blood and it's in my DNA to connect with these certain ancient spirits, that I know that the reason that these spirits have a bad rap is because they are powerful and because
Yes.
they stand for individuality and freedom and liberation. And people that understand this are not easy to control. And I know that that is by and large the whole reason for organized religion because they
Mm-hmm.
want to control what you feel, what you think, where you spend your money, how you spend it, and how you feel about yourself. And they want you to be just like the rest of them. They want to have the power, they want you to follow along. And that's really like the total opposite of what my spiritual path stands for, what these demons stand for,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's like a lot of people kind of miss the whole boat on like the fact that, and I think it's really the Catholic Church is doing that most of these, what we call demons now, are just ancient deities that were worshipped and worked with by our ancestors in the same way that they're working with, Jehovah and Jesus and Mary today.
Yeah,
You
the
know, it
saints.
wasn't, didn't have this negative connotation attached to it. These were their deities.
Hmm.
And they put that spin on it to make you afraid, to make you think that they're all evil and bad, when really that's not the case at all. They're just powerful and they're going to show you the truth. And they don't want that
Mm.
happening.
Mm. Oh my God, I love everything you just said. Which kind of gets me to the next thing, like you said, and like you said in the beginning, that when you made allies with these spirits is really when the fear sort of stopped. When you were like, all right, like I'll walk with you. Let's see where we go. Um, and there's still, even in the magic community now, then there's levels to it, right? There's people that are just getting into it. There's people that are experienced. There's people all across the whole spectrum. And I work with demons some. I not so much. I don't have any problem with working with them, but it's just not where my path has like mostly led me yet. But I do get a lot of comments and questions, and you probably do as well, from people who have that fear of working with these spirits, whether it's Lilith or especially Lucifer, because of the programming. Like I remember telling a friend of mine earlier this year, I was saying that I had an interview with one of these series of interviews with somebody who worked with Lucifer, and she grew up in like this Catholic cult, and she was like, the Lucifer? And it was like, yeah, the one and only, and so, she, not that she was like afraid of it or whatever, but there's such a stigma behind it, and even people that are into magic are like, no, I don't want to mess with these demons because like I'm afraid. Ultimately, whatever they say after that, it's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of misunderstanding. And so I really feel like your path in this life is to bring this awareness to these spirits, um and who do have a darker energy, who do have a lower, maybe, well, lower vibrational, just denser energy, um, and have this stigma around them because they are so powerful and because they are hidden from the church, not because they're evil, but because they help you to recognize the power that we have within ourselves. And I think that's so important, that you have this path that you're walking and feel called to, and embracing, to be able to shine a light, like your, like the name of your YouTube, isn't it, like from the light of the darkness or
Uh-huh.
something?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, and really hopefully help people to rewire that thinking in their brain, and create a different narrative about these spirits, and in that process, take back their own power a little bit. And and so I applaud you, first of all, with just that, and the work that you're doing, because I think that's really important, and myself included, like that. Growing up religious, I had a lot of unlearning to do in order to be okay with like working with Lucifer or Lilith, or demons, or anything like that, um and eventually you get to a point, perhaps on your journey, where you meet other people that do work with it, and like, you have a great energy about you. You're not like some evil sorcerer in like working with these demons causing mayhem on people, at least as far as I know. You're not. And and there's just such like a, like, and there's a narrative already, for that, I believe is important in being rewritten. Um, and you're exactly right. Like about the church not wanting these spirits to be connected with, and that essentially like put them in this category of like evil and bad, and just don't mess with them because of the power that they hold. Um and so before so we're before these spirits started contacting you, did you have any? I know you mentioned like kind of being into taboo topics as a kid and stuff, but did you have any, well, I guess tarot cards, like what instigated your curiosity in the occult? um
Um, yeah. I mean, I did actually before these crazy things started happening, maybe a year prior to that, when I was still participating in the Catholic Church, I began to feel energies so strongly that I was attracted to learning like energy work, like Usai Reiki.
mm,
And then I got into shamanic Reiki. And
mm,
so I did start doing that and started wanting to get into like energy healing and actual like physical healing. And I was doing that a lot with my pets, with my dogs, and doing like
mm,
actual, physical healing for them. And I could actually feel where their issues were. And I sought out people locally that I could go and learn this from and get the attunements. And I really got into that. And I was going to a healing circle at this local woman's house. So there'd be like four or five of us that would meet in the middle of the day every Wednesday. And then she had a thing every Saturday too. And so she would have a mediumship and intuitive development class
mm.
on Saturday morning, and then we would do a Reiki healing circle thing for about an hour, take turns, practicing on each other.
Nice.
And then we would do the same thing on Wednesday. And I was doing that for probably about a year, maybe almost 2 years before all the crazy things started happening with the demons. So I'm glad you've asked that because I actually kind of skipped over that and kind of forgot about that
It's
really. But
okay.
that's really uh that's really where my interest in any of this got started. I just for some reason, and I can't even remember how it happened really. I think you're really just like I started feeling these energies and I could kind of feel it like coming through the palms of my hands. And I think I just something clicked in my head. Like I didn't even know what Reiki was. I think I just started sometimes when you start to kind of like feel certain things, like that information just starts to manifest through synchronicities, and so it just was like all of a sudden like it was in my line of sight everywhere I looked, like this about it or that about it. And then I just kind of had to like take it upon myself to like seek people out that could actually teach me and places where I could go and learn. And I was able to find that, thank goodness. So that's really what got me into it, and again, like I was probably 28, 26, maybe 26 or 27 years old at this time.
Mm,
So really I would say from probably like 17 to, so like a 10-year period where I really wasn't thinking about any of this stuff at all.
mm.
It just, I was earlier in life. And then I had a 10-year period where, life took me in a bunch of other different directions, but then it just kind of came back full circle and then started really coming in.
Yeah, gotcha. And so how does your family now uh react, or do they know, to the level extent of your spiritual beliefs? Like what was there? I mean, you've mentioned your ex-wife, so clearly you and your Catholic wife are no longer together for,
Mm.
which may not have anything to do with the spiritual beliefs, it may, but just how, parents, close family, friends, how did they react when you embraced this path?
They all absolutely hate it. They
Yeah.
all hate it. And, I think they probably by and large hate who I am.
Mm,
I'm definitely kept at a distance. I mean, that's always been the case. And I think that most people, most witches, most people that are on that spiritual path can relate to being the black sheep. And that is kind of like something that most of us all do share in common that end up
mm,
on this path. That was already the case, but once I started this, and especially once I started doing it professionally and helping other people and teaching other people and talking about these things and bringing awareness to it, they definitely do not like it at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a 17-year-old daughter, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 11-year-old daughter, and I'm still forbidden to even let them know who I am. I'm sure
Mm.
my two older daughters probably know,
Yeah.
but I'm not permitted to even mention it, and
Mm.
that's a hard thing to like not be able to actually share with your daughters like who their father actually is.
Yeah.
But I respect my ex-wife's wishes enough to not talk about it, and
Yeah.
to not bring it up and to not, um, really bring it into their lives. I feel like someday they're going to come and talk to me about it. Someday they
Yeah.
may be interested in it, and I'll wait until they're old enough and where they
Mm.
can make their own decision on that to where I'm not overstepping the boundaries that I have agreed to abide by in that way. But um I know it comes from a place of fear. It comes from a place of them not understanding. They've seen me go through a lot of difficulty on this path, and people are gonna, it's gonna
Yeah.
transform you. It's gonna change you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go through really rough periods of life, most likely, but these are things that need to happen in
Mm-hmm.
order for you to shed your skin, in order for you to release trauma, in order for you to really truly know who you are
Yeah.
as a person is not an easy process. And sometimes it looks really freaking ugly. And this can be something that can, initially at times it can impact your life in a negative way. And that's something where you still got to keep pushing forward. If you truly feel that this path is for you, you've got to endure. Like the only way out is through, and you've got to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think now at this point in my life where they have seen the transformation. They've witnessed it themselves firsthand to where I used to be to where I'm at now. The
Mm-hmm.
person I used to be is compared to the person that I am now. There was a long period, most of my life, I had drug problems. And or alcohol issues. I was always going through it,
Mm-hmm.
and through this spiritual path. I mean, I'm absolutely sober now today. I mean, I drink a lot
Mm-hmm.
of caffeine and I smoke some
Yeah.
cigarettes, but that's
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And I have certainly I'm at the point where I'm, been showing up more than life than I ever have been. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's like once they see the proof in the pudding, it's undeniable. They're still never going to embrace it. They're still never going to like it. But I think
Yeah.
really they have to see that, like, wow, like just like what they're doing works for them, this works for me.
Yeah.
And I think really like leading by example and just showing them like what is possible through this type of spiritual undertaking
Mm-hmm.
really ultimately is a positive thing. But like, anything else in life, like it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be easy. It's going to be scary sometimes. You're going to be challenged. You're going to have periods of having to let things go that you're going to try to hold on to for dear life. That's just not meant to be. And the holder longer and harder you try to hold on to it, the more difficult it's going to get. And like that's
Yeah.
was my biggest problem. There was tons of things that I was refusing to let go of that through that the spirits kept putting more pressure on me and making things even harder, trying to get me to just look at it like, dude, we're trying to show you how hard do we need to make it so that you will actually do what you need to do. And so
Yeah.
when I finally did it, they're like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's a blessing,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can relate. I can relate a lot to that. And it's not ever the path, the spiritual path, that's causing the pain and the setbacks and the traumas and the turmoil. it's ourselves on that path,
Mhm.
and the lack of letting, the resistance to letting go, like you said, and the resistance to change, even though we see it and are told it a million times, it's never the path itself, and as long as, like you said, like we're committed to this path, we're going to be facing those challenges and facing those struggles, but most of the time, if not all the time, it's us getting in our own way.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
once we can figure out that we're the problem, um, then, like you said, the path is still there and it will start to bless you rather than like just, all right, well, here's another test. Here's another test. Oh, new place. Here's another test. Um, and yeah, and I can relate as well to just having some some struggles in the past with substance abuse and my family, um, seeing this path and seeing this sort of downward spiral happening at the time where they blame external factors,
Mhm.
um, and blame the belief systems I'm getting into and blame the
Yep.
this and that,
Yep.
and the whole time I knew, like, it's not that, it's not the belief systems, like that's the one thing that feels right and true. It's everything else that's breaking down because things are having to shift and adjust in order for me to walk this new path, and I'm terrified as hell to let go of all this. And but similar to your story now, now they don't really know, I think, the level, my parents don't really know the extent to what I do. I think they kind of turned a blind eye, but they've, my dad has asked me like if I'm a practicing witch before and if I think that's healthy. And I was like, well, yeah, and honestly I do, but they see that transformation in me, and so I think it makes them feel better, just not seeing me on a downward spiral anymore, of course.
Mhm.
But also, like, I'm not there trying to get them to believe anything. I know not to talk about it. I know it's not going to be accepted or anything, and the path is still there. The path is actually clearer now than it was when I was going through those struggles because I get out of my own way. And granted, am I done with that process of like of that? No. Like, there's going to be more tests. There's going to be more of me getting in my own way. There's going to be more lessons along the way, in order to help that spiritual evolution. Um, but that's the kind of life that I signed up for in this lifetime, ultimately, is to transform and to grow. And it sounds like yours is a similar path. And so I know you, so when you were in Catholicism, or when you were in, the church, did you have any fears? Well, I know you were like really anxious and afraid when the spirits started to communicate with you and talk to you. But did you have any fears as you began to explore that path more about, like, oh, what am I getting into? I'm afraid, but I'm still gonna keep going. Like, was there anything like that? Like, did you kind of experience those thoughts too?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like, I I was definitely like, wow, like I don't know what I'm getting into here. And if I subscribe to whatever religion tells me, like I'm definitely going to hell.
Yeah.
Like, and so like, what does that mean? And what is that all about? And like I ran across this book called Inventing Hell, and it was all
Hmm.
about like Dante's Inferno and how that was kind of like just literally made up to scare the hell out of people, that like this is something that we are going to manufacture that, scare people to death and make them believe in these seven levels of turmoil and misery depending on what you've done in life. And
Hmm.
that made me feel a little bit better, but at the same time, too, this ancient primal energy that we're not accustomed to in this modern day and age that these spirits bring to the table, um, is something that can be absolutely terrifying. And I really did have to remind myself over and over. And it's something that, E.A. Coetti would say all the time, like when you are on this path, when you're summoning a demon or you're summoning an ancient deity, when you are really, setting your course to get serious about this path, you really literally have to be like you are standing on the edge of a cliff and there's nothing down there to catch you, but you need to step off of it or jump off of it with everything that you have, knowing that you may very well be damning your soul for all eternity, but you're still going to be willing to do that and
Mm-hmm.
still have the courage to take that step, still have the courage to take that leap.
Mm-hmm.
And something inside of me just told me, like, screw it, let's do it, let's bring it
Yeah.
on. Like, I'm going to find out, it's more than just curiosity. And
Yeah.
it's more than just being an edgy rebel. This was something
Right.
inside of me that told me, like, this is what you got to do, dude. And like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
care how afraid you are or what might happen, you got to do this.
Yeah.
You got to do this. And like, no matter where you end up, if you do end up at the bottom of some pit somewhere, you are going to pick yourself up. You are going to rise like a phoenix. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
show them all like
Mm-hmm.
how badass you are and how determined you are and how powerful you are, that like nothing is going to hold you back from your ultimate destiny. And that really was kind of like my driving force in it, like, yeah, I was definitely afraid. I was afraid for years getting into this. Every time I summoned a new deity, I was scared of like what was going to happen in the ritual space. I was scared what was going to happen when they manifested. I thought I was going to be staring into the eyes of some foul creature that was literally going to like devour me, and
Mm-hmm.
some people describe situations like that. I've never had a scenario quite in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had some that were certainly tangible and certainly pretty earth-shaking. But I think that when you come to them with respect, when you come to them with a spiritual reverence, when you come to them with like a real burning desire to connect with them, and in doing so, improve your life, you certainly get a different side of them than someone that was going to them just out of like
Mm-hmm.
fun and curiosity or out of some type of disrespect or what have you, And I think it depends on the type of person too. There's some pretty bad people out there that do some really bad things that they want to try to harness this type of power and energy. And I think they really learned some pretty hard lessons there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where I have found with working with these spirits, like they really do want to see you thrive. They want to see you spiritually ascend. They seem to have some type of vested interest in your spiritual ascent and in your growth. And
Mm-hmm.
the more you honor and respect yourself, the more you're willing to make tough choices in life that are hard,
Mm-hmm.
that will be difficult, the more they bless you and the more they raise you up, the more they're behind you. When you're not respecting yourself, when you're not taking care of yourself, when you don't give a damn about your life and what happens to you, they do turn their back on you and you do
Mm-hmm.
feel it. They do give you the cold shoulder and they're not there supporting you anymore because if you don't give a damn, they don't give a damn. But if you
Yeah.
start caring, they'll show that back to you like a
Mm-hmm.
hundredfold.
Yeah, I like how you said that. And there is a huge difference, in the people that are or try to seek this path just out of rebellion, you know, or to be cool, or to like go against what they grew up with, you know. But then it separates the men from the boys, so to speak, because it's like, well, how far are you really willing to go? Like, you're opening the door, are you gonna walk through it? And I think a lot of the time most people get too scared and they turn their back and they're like, ew, what did I actually just get into a little bit, you know? And so it really takes somebody who's committed and somebody with that strength to know, like, okay, I could, if I listen to what I grew up with, I will be burning in hell till the end of my soul's days if I do follow this path, you know. But like, I might not too. Like, I don't know. And if there's a true calling there, like, that's nothing's going to, well, the only thing that would stop you is yourself, you know, as we said. So I have a couple questions rattling around in my brain. So first of all, do you still have any, like, it sounds like you've fully embraced and accepted like your current spiritual practices, and that there is no more fear of potentially going to hell or anything, or if there is, you're like accepting it and like, okay, cool, like, I'll see you in hell, you know. So where are you at kind of with that belief now that you're like professionally in this world?
Yeah, I mean, I have no more fear of these spirits whatsoever. I know that they certainly do have my best interest overall. And you know, like there's no, I have no, I mean, I have much more fear of crazy people than I do these spirits or demons, like for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely see, you know, my spirit team as like my family, you know, and I
Mm,
know that they are there, they're protecting me, they're supporting me, they're showing me things that I need to see. You know,
mm,
they're giving me insight even on like what other people are doing or what they're trying to do or what they're gonna do and
mm,
what I need to do in, you know, to in order to avoid certain pitfalls and certain chaos. You know, I definitely trust them 1,000,000,000,000,000,000%. You know, I
mm.
mean, I definitely trust these spirits much more than I would trust any man.
Yeah.
And you know, do I feel that there's a place of suffering that I will be going? Like, absolutely not. I don't believe that whatsoever.
Mm,
You know, I think that. Um, I don't really know that there is a place or a realm that would really exist like that. I think that everybody is redeemable in some type of way. I know that there are certain things, I mean, you know, like people that hurt children. I mean, really, that's the thing. I mean, people that would do despicable things like that, you know, there's definitely some type of something that's going to happen to them. I don't know that it's really going to be the kind of level that we would know is like hell's depicted of, but
mm,
you know, I have no fear of any place like that whatsoever. I mean, I've got a few different notions of what's going to happen from a sense of kind of like immortality, so to speak, and just kind of progressing to different levels of consciousness, even here on this physical plane. I mean,
mm,
I've had so many near-death experiences and so many
mm,
situations to where I should have died and maybe I did die, but then jump onto a new timeline and here I am still living, so
mm.
I think,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
I
it
think
may
so.
just kind of keep going on forever and ever like that,
Mm,
possibly. But, you
mm,
know, I do kind of see where this world is going. And I do kind of feel that like we are literally creating heaven on earth here, that earth is our home and that heaven is already here.
mm.
The heaven or the infernal empire, whatever you want to call it, is literally going to rise and going to materialize here with us. We're already home and we don't even realize it, but we're still building it as we
Mm,
are improving upon ourselves. And
mm,
even through like the progression of our technology, I do feel that that is a spiritual component to it as well. It is helping us to construct this sense of heaven on earth, that this technology is a gift from the spirits. And it is not just electronic. It is not just technology. It's spiritual technology. It's a spiritual component to it that is literally helping us to create what we are ultimately here to create, which is a place where we will exist and thrive forever. So
Mm,
um, that's kind of the way that I'm feeling about it. You know, maybe if that's not the case, then we will be kind of integrating our energy body and our spirits back into that oneness of source. You know, at
yeah.
some point we will be doing that, I'm sure, but I think that we still have a lot of work here to do in creating this heaven on earth, so to speak, that I really do believe that that's our goal here to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love that you mentioned that. And that's a beautiful, beautiful way to put it. Interesting that what your thoughts about the technology side too, because I do agree that with the advancement of technology, there is this ability to propel people forward on that spiritual path and to accelerate the timeline of just humanity to I mean, we always have the conscious choice, to create that heaven on earth or to do the opposite. And I think a lot of people have the fear or lack of awareness maybe of not creating that heaven on earth, and that we're just stuck in like the matrix. But there is, not to be cliche, there are enough people like awakening and embracing their own evolution and their own transformation and their own healing to create that reality on earth, because this is our home. Whatever we believe comes after this, we don't know. Like right now, right here, we're having a conversation face to, well, virtually face to face. Speaking of technology, and I, as much as I believe in my beliefs after or of life after death, like I don't know, like for sure, and like I would prefer to create a heaven on earth before I get to the other place. And so this kind of gets me to my next question too. So in your journey, in your process, in your profession now of working with these spirits, I think it's important for anybody that's curious to work with them, or anybody that just works with spirits in general. What are your methods, or what have you found to be the best ways of maintaining spiritual hygiene?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when you're on a path like this, if you do not take that seriously, then you will certainly have some discomfort. That
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting rid of clutter, that's always been a big problem for me. Things tend to get cluttery, and that really, and I used to hold on to a lot of things, and so
Mm,
you definitely need to get rid of, let things go, try to keep things not cluttered. I'm a big proponent of taking, spiritual showers or salt baths,
mm,
cleansing yourself with salt, using Palo Santo, using cedar. I really don't use sage too much just because it does really kind of neutralize everything. I mean, if
mm,
there's like a really, really foul, funky energy where you're just gonna need to take everything out or remove anything, then maybe smudging with sage would be the way to go. But I typically try to go with Palo Santo or cedar instead of that, using Florida water,
mm-hmm.
using salt water, doing those types of things, really like grounding yourself, walking outside barefooted, getting outside in nature, getting
Yes.
near flowing water, sitting out in the moonlight and just like you would in the sun, doing the same thing with the moon,
Yeah.
using different tones and sound vibrations, whether it's singing bowls or, some type of uh, different just frequencies of
Yeah.
different types of music that are created. I can't think of what it's called right now. escaping me, but
Like binaural beats or
yes,
yeah,
binaural beats, exactly.
yeah.
Things of that nature. I mean, I think, using sound is a great way to neutralize energy and to kind of, reset and balance energies within you and your chakras. I think like doing certain types of energy work to remove stagnant energy and to kind of reestablish balance within your energy centers. And
Mm-hmm.
then, taking things like those spiritual baths and using cedar and Palo Santo to kind of, protect and heal and patch up holes in your aura. For me too, I mean, I think one of the biggest things in spiritual hygiene, at least for me, is staying sober. I think
Mm-hmm.
like when you go overboard with alcohol, when you go overboard with drugs, when you go overboard with anything that is really altering your sensibilities to the standpoint to where your free will has gone out the door and you don't even really know what you're doing in that moment, you
Mm-hmm.
can really let a lot of things in and two, not just like different spiritual forces, but actually like attracted to deceit, spirits of deceased people.
Yeah.
If you drink a lot of alcohol and you're drunk all the time, you're at that vibration. If you get in the different right proximity of a certain deceased spirit, that spirit's going to want be attracted to that vibration and identify with it, and it will certainly do whatever it can to latch on to that person, to experience that drink again, to experience that
Mm-hmm.
sensation again, to experience the things that they experienced in life through that person that they've latched on to. And then it slowly but surely begin to use that person like a puppet. And then they're doing all kinds of crazy things that they would never do because
Yeah.
it's not them. They're literally being controlled, but they let themselves get to a point from a spiritual hygiene point to such a low vibration and that such a open aura that they do and can allow those types of spiritual attachments to take place. And before you know it, you're dealing with like a different person entirely. And that's sad and that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a great point. I love that you said that about being sober because it has been, and even in my own magical journey, I've found that when I'm like I used to smoke a lot more weed. Well, I smoke a little bit of weed sometimes, but like I used to regularly, and just to the
Dude.
point where it wasn't really a choice. It was just a
Yep.
habit,
Yep.
and an addiction more so.
Yep.
And at that time, not during the whole time, but it got to a point. There was one point in time where I was more susceptible to outside energies, or other people casting hexes on me or whatever,
Yep.
and I really had to. It was like a leveling up experience because I had to figure out, like, okay, why am I feeling so out of control and anxious and just like these insane sensations that I was feeling, and realizing it was like spiritual warfare more or less, and like,
Yes.
and I was a victim and I was weak and I needed to make certain changes, and a lot of that came with sobriety. I mean, I'm not sober all the time, but I don't have daily, I enjoy
Right.
nicotine and caffeine on the regular too, but especially as my like spiritual practices and my magical practices have gotten more in depth. I If you're not in control of your mind, you're not in control of your magic, so if there's anything that's, like you said, like limiting your free will or taking that power away from you, it's almost dangerous to do magic or to be working with spirits, because then there's an access point for something to come in, that you might not want, or to be contacting the wrong thing. And so even if you're doing all the nature walks and all the moon bathing and all the this and that, like if your mind's not really there and clear, it's still not, it's not enough, so not saying that people on this path have to be sober all the time, but it's important to maintain that control of your mind,
Yes.
and in order to really harness the energies and the power that we're working with, whatever that may be. So man, you have such a cool story. Like there's so many things that I want to get into, but I won't make this like a 3 hour long interview. But so I have a few more questions. And then if there's anything, of course, that you want to share about like what you do now, like you're welcome to share that. So, um, okay, so all right, so like three more questions. So, what would you say? Is there anything that you would say to the younger version of yourself that was going through either the religious experiences or more specifically like the crazy spirit like possession paranormal poltergeist experiences that you had at the beginning that of that sort of awakening, right? Like with Lilith and Azazel and all the other ones. Like is there anything that you now where you are in this path would say to you then to help or whatever, like whatever comes to mind for that?
I mean, really, like the biggest thing is that I think that, that like just to know that change is inevitable, to not try to hold on to everything, especially when you know that things aren't working for you or something is not good, to be willing to let it go, to not, to always embrace change and to, and to like just to not be so hard on yourself, to not carry burdens of shame and guilt and regret, to not like live in the past all the damn time, beating yourself up over what you may have said or what you did, a year ago or 5 years ago, or the mistakes that you made, the people that you hurt, that, you don't have to hold on to that stuff and continue to put yourself through your own type of punishment when really all you need to do is let it go and just agree to do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. There you go. That's great. That's beautiful. And it is hard in life, you know, as you're growing up, whether you're on this a spiritual path or not, to realize that change is inevitable, you know, and but that's like the number one constant thing in life is change,
For sure.
and it sucks sometimes,
Mhm.
but it's necessary. It's been a big lesson for myself as well. Um, so so I know you have kind of an interesting or different situation, like because you do have kids that aren't aware of your path, but so how let me think of how to phrase this. Ideally, if you didn't have to hide any of yourself, you know, to your children right now, how would you think the best way to raise a child in spirituality or in religion would be? Like, would you subject your kids, like if you had the choice, would you subject, well, not to say that you don't have a choice, but would you subject your kids to any of the religious upbringing that you had, or because it's safer, quote unquote, or would you, you know, kind of be more open? How would you deal with like that upbringing of spirituality, um ideally?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because like I think that like what I do now isn't something that I would really say that I would really totally let them engage in
Right.
being a child. I think I certain, there's an element of teaching different life lessons and morals in church, which I think that can be great, but you can certainly instill that in your children in other ways. But really I think that I would certainly try to teach them more about like how your conscious and subconscious minds works and how this
Mm-hmm.
world works, and what symbols and things are really trying to tell you, and so they could really kind of understand some of those concepts earlier on. I may get them into like a more nature-based approach to spirituality, maybe teach them about their energy body, and what how to use intentions and how to use different elemental properties, and maybe what herbs do, maybe some candle magic and things. But as far as, um, would I want them being involved in organized religion? I don't, maybe not, because I do think that it really just sets you up for never feeling good about yourself because you're never really adding up to being, having the ability to not be ashamed for this or that, or not
Mm-hmm.
having the ability to not be ashamed for who and what you are, or the things that you have done, and that like really having to carry around those heavy burdens and really never truly being able to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And that like not having access or direct access to the creator or to God, I certainly would not want them to feel that way. I would certainly do everything that I could to let them know that like you do have direct access, that you don't
Yes.
need me or anybody else to connect with like divine creation, with the creator of all, like with
Mm-hmm.
yourself, like um and not ever having the opportunity to really do that, it's a tough question for me because I don't know really how I would approach it
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
It's something that um I've thought about it, but at the same time, it's something that I just kind of had to put out of my mind altogether because it's
Yeah.
like and in the community I'm in, I mean, I know that there are some people maybe that do communicate some of these things to their children and teach their children some of these things, but there's not many people that I know that do.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they're going to be maybe 18 or older before they start getting involved in stuff like this, and maybe even older than that once they start getting into the levels of some of the things that I do and some of the methods that I use for things. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of it's a it's a touchy subject, but I guess I would really just want them to understand, what good morals are and how energy works,
Yeah.
how people can manipulate you, and how this world really aims to manipulate your mind and your thoughts and your actions, and what that looks like and what that's all about.
Yeah.
I would really kind of like try to find a way to focus on those things just so that they can kind of be more aware of the world that they actually live in and not just be kind of a victim of what it's trying to do and to control you in the way
Yeah.
it does.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer. Because it is there's a lot of control that happens within religion and even outside of religion,
Hmm.
and so having that awareness, I think, at a young age, if it's able to be instilled, would be super beneficial. But also gaining that awareness at any point in life is also good. um, so in this rapidly evolving world, do you think that religion having the same stronghold on individuals is beneficial for future generations? I mean, it sounds like you kind of maybe just answered this question, or how do you see the future of religion in the world, or how would you like to see it? Maybe.
I mean, I would really, really and truly, I would love to see it crumble.
Yeah, yeah.
Of like what it stands for ultimately, I mean, it's really kind of like I hate to use a wolf in sheep's clothing because I definitely look as wolves as more of a honorable and respectable species, more like a hyena
Mm.
in sheep's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something, it's presenting itself to be something that it is totally not, and I see that, but a lot of people just don't see it. So I would definitely like to see the stranglehold that religion has placed upon this world to be lessened to the greatest degree possible, so that people can
Yeah.
really truly feel real liberation and make their own choices, and that they can see that they are able to grow and progress spiritually and progress as a people and as a species without having to have all of this immense control over them, and one thing I really don't agree with, especially because of my association with Lilith, is that, our three primary religions that rule this world only identify their spiritual, the head of their spiritual belief system as a man, as a male masculine energy,
Mm-hmm.
that they totally take the goddess and throw that out the window and say it doesn't exist. And I
Yes.
think that, like, in the spiritual realm above us, of course, we're going to have divine masculine and divine feminine represented there, and we do not have it down here on this earth. And that is one
Mm,
of the biggest problems that I see our world is facing, is that we have literally thrown our mother out. We've thrown that
mm,
divine feminine energy out. We've made it to feel, and women to feel, shameful for everything that they are, and that we have taken the lunar energy, the moon energy out of our spirituality. It's all solar, it's all the sun, it's all the father, it's all the man, man, man. And like
mm-hmm.
that is wrong to me. And I
Yeah.
think that that's caused a huge imbalance. And I think that that goddess energy, that divine feminine energy, is coming back into this realm big time, and it's shaking
Mm,
things up and it's waking people up. And it's
yes.
kind of like, the way that I see it is that, like, for the longest time through these organized religions, is that we're a bunch of kids down here being raised by a single father, and he ain't happy about it. He's having a hard time keeping us all, straight. He needs mommy here. Mommy needs to come home and help out and balance things out. And
Yep.
so we've been living in this absolute chaos
Mm-hmm.
because it has been the focus on that masculine spiritual energy. And we totally have thrown her out, and she needs to be restored here. And that's one of the biggest things that I feel like that part of my role here is to do, is to,
Mm,
reintroduce and let that goddess reclaim her throne here so that
mm,
balance can be restored back to this realm.
I had chills the entire time that you were speaking about the goddess coming back down, and to me, that's just an indication of like spiritual truth and importance. And so I still have chills a little bit, and I completely agree. I think and that's great that you feel too that that is a part of your work, a part of your duty, a part of your calling, because that integration, that reintegration, mommy does need to come home. There's too many kids that need her, too many adult kids that need her. Um, and so I know, so kind of wrapping up a little bit, which I'm like, there's so much more I want to talk about, but like, I won't, and respect your time and everything. But like, is there anything that you want to touch on more about Lilith? And then kind of getting into like if any of the work that you do professionally, like if for anybody that may be watching this and is curious, I mean, I know they can check out your website, and I'll also post all your links and stuff below here, but if there's anything that you like feel called to share, or anything that Lilith wants to come in to say, um you know feel free, the space is open to do so.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, she is absolutely spectacular. She can be a difficult teacher depending on where you are at as a person, like, if you're someone that really needs a lot of work and really needs a lot of fine tuning, you're gonna have not difficulty, but it's gonna be rough. She's going to need to do a lot of internal help you do a lot of internal work before she can really start to do what she really does, which is to refine you, to give you that. Mm, she like, I mean, she will definitely make you more polished. She will show you things that really will take you to that more respectable level as a human being. And if you're not there yet, she's gonna really shake the crap out of you just so that she can start to really sculpt and mold you. So,
Mm,
don't be afraid of that.
Yeah.
Don't think that she's there trying to hurt you because she's not, but a lot of that work is kind of dirty work. And so it looks all different kinds of ways to different kinds of people. And just be careful, if you are working with her, not to misrepresent her or not to
Mm.
misrepresent yourself in thinking that is there a seductive side? Is there a sexy side? It's like, yes, all that's there, but that is definitely not what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely embracing, spiritual sexuality, that sensual part of yourself and how you can use and fuel, your every facet of your life through tapping into that sacred sexuality, but it doesn't mean that you need to exploit yourself or glorify her in the exploitation of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely isn't cool with that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can tap into those things and, but I wouldn't really say that she's a champion of that. And a lot of people really look at her as something like that she's not. So I would just say to use caution there if you want to work with her. It's so that you can become polished and definitely you're going to tap into some primal aspects of yourself and your sexual energy, but it's not to be taken to a degree of like degrading yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of, one thing I guess I wanted to touch on there. I mean, but she
Yeah.
is so nurturing and loving and can be very motherly and be a great guide and very understanding, and to help you to really kind of peel back those layers and heal those wounds, and
Mm-hmm.
she really is very, very patient with the people that she knows that has a sincere interest in healing, in um, becoming better,
Mm-hmm.
in respecting yourself. Like you've got to respect yourself first and foremost. You've got to give a damn about yourself and your life.
Yeah.
You can't be out here totally not giving a damn and glorifying her name and being like, "Hail Lilith, I'm a piece of crap and I love it."
Yeah. Yeah.
No, she does not like that.
Right.
She'll put up with it, she'll be patient with you, but she'll also take your face and put it down in the gravel and show you a thing or two if you do that too much.
Mm, yeah. Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So I know I keep saying we're gonna wrap up, which we will, but I have like a couple questions. So what would you recommend to somebody who's interested in beginning to work with Lilith? Like, how did you begin, other than like the intense like visitation
Yeah.
by her? Are there books or meditations
Mhm.
or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say really like, to start off by just um with her sigil, with her
Mm,
symbol of Lilith, start off with that sigil, gaze into it, meditate with it, make a little altar. Like you can
mm-hmm,
just use a nightstand or an end table or even just lay out an altar cloth in the, corner of the room and put some candles and some incense there and have her sigil there and just sit with it and ask her to come and be with you and sit in that energy and try
mm,
to feel her presence around you and to just like sincerely put out there, if you want to write a letter to her and
mm,
read that out loud and then maybe burn that letter, like with your intent of wanting to connect with her and what you want her to help you with in your life, like really by gazing into her sigil, that is really kind of like calling her up on a cell phone and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I want to talk to you."
mm,
And so once you kind of start making the connection in that way, maybe listening to some meditations that are geared towards her energy.
mm-hmm.
There's her in, which is like a chant
Right.
that will repeat itself over and over. You can learn that too, or just sit and listen to that while you're giving her an offering. You can give her some chocolate, you can give her some red wine, you can give her fresh roses, fresh flowers, things of that nature, that is pleasing to her, and giving her that, I mean, I think above any offering, your time and your attention and your willingness to want her have to come into your life to make improvements and to heal is going to be the quickest way to have her really show up and begin to make her presence known in your life. So it's just a willingness, more than a willingness of just like curiosity to like, let's see if you'll show up. Like, I think you really kind of have to have a burning desire to want to become better and to want to make radical changes and to like ask her sincerely to assist you in that. She's not really going to deny many people. I don't think she's going to really deny anyone. I think she's going to give everybody a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the more that we do this on a collective level, the stronger her energy gets here, in this realm. The
Yeah.
more time and attention we place upon her and her image and her energy and her sigil, the stronger she becomes, in this realm. And of course, you can take it to other levels once you do like establish contact with her and you actually really want to start doing some magical things with her, or start doing, making like wild improvements to your reality through magical means. Then there's other types of offerings of yourself that you can give,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
different types of fluids and different types of sexual energies and things of that nature, even dancing, yoga. You can
Mm-hmm.
give her any type of anything that is of your vital essence and
Mm-hmm.
that flows energy through you, can be an offering, to her. But, I think time and attention, placing your attention upon her is going to be the easiest way to connect with her.
Yeah. I think she even likes this discussion being had about her right now. I
I
feel
could
like.
feel that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one point where your voice got a little staticky, not like before or anything. And I was like, oh, I bet that's Lilith's energy kind of coming in right now. So they like attention.
Yeah.
Clownek, the spirit, the demon of wealth, also really likes attention and
Mm.
having his name talked about and his
Yup.
like sigil and stuff. So it's funny, they want to be, they're like, all right, I'm listening. But cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. All right. One last final question, maybe, probably, and then we'll wrap up and I'll let, you can let people know. So, for those looking to establish sort of a pantheon of sorts of spirits to work with, how did you find yours? Like the spirits that you call on, like witches typically have like a group of spirits that they just call on. That's like their homies. Did those spirits that you work with come to you first, or did you actively seek them out? Or how did you establish your sort of, regular spirits that you work with and call on?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they came to not all of them, but a handful of them came to me first. But then, it really just was kind of like it was really by and large like the nine demonic gatekeepers.
Mm,
So like there's Abaddon, Lucifer, Lucifuge, Baal, Azazel, King Belial, Asmodeus. Um, let's see who else. Da, 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 da. I'm trying not to leave anybody out here, but
yeah.
my mind is kind of drawing a blank. But there's quite a few, but mainly those nine, I mean, Satan was one that I stayed away from for the longest time. I mean, Lucifer's always been, big in my life. But, it's really like those spirits really like that really kind of encompass the energy of the adversary by and large. Those really have been like the ones that I work with the most, I mean, King Paimon too.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a big one in my life too, I mean, Hecate and Lilith, have really been the ones that I've worked with primarily is from like a feminine standpoint. There's been a few others like Nama and Babylon, but Lilith and Hecate have been primary. But really, I would say like the nine demonic gatekeepers have been the ones that have been like the ones that just kind of like really came to me and then showed me as I would work with one, they'd be like, hey, you need to go and check out this dude. And then
Yeah.
it's kind of like stepping stones. Like I'd go work with this one, they'd be like, hey, you need to jump over here and go check out this guy, And so it just kind of went that way. But I think really it's like, I think for the most part, whoever you really decide to work with, ultimately, it was never you making that choice. It was
Hmm.
them the whole time reaching out to you. You just think it was your doing, but really, it was them the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you said that. Yeah, that's true. Um and it is important, I think for witches, I guess, or people that practice magic to have those regular spirits, to build a relationship with spirits, not just like use them for when you want something, but to
Right.
make those offerings, to honor them, to
Yeah.
respect them, to to respect their energy and what they're about and their image. And so I think it's important too that you said that about Lilith as well, specifically, but really any spirit that you work with. So okay, well we'll go ahead and kind of wrap up. But so where can people find more about you other than your YouTube? And again, I'll post all this underneath the link. But yeah, what work do you do? What services do you offer? Whatever you want to share on all that. So.
So yeah, I have a website where I do offer all different types of ritual services for hire. I can do, custom workings, but I have a lot of different like meta links to different spirits to where that will help you to establish a firm connection with them so that you can begin working with them. I do wealth magic. I also do
Mm-hmm.
direct bindings of incubi and succubi if you want like a spiritual companion. Really, you can go on there. There's all the different types of things. I do have imbued relics like talismans and amulets that are
Mm-hmm.
blessed, bracelets and things of that nature that have different energies or different intentions. I do offer, one-on-one consultations, oracle card readings and things like that. And that's at jdtemple.info.
Cool.
And then I have a Patreon, which is Patreon/, JD Temple. And on that, there's different, content that I don't put on YouTube that is available there. There's different levels, of course, of membership. I have one where it offers monthly group rituals where I do, there might be 10 or 20 people involved that I perform the ritual on behalf of all of them. So I do those, I do a different one of those pretty much every month. And then there's different levels of mentorship where you'll have like direct access to me through text messaging, either 4 or 5 or 6 days a week. And then, depending on the level of that, you'll be able to have like 1 or 2 video chats with me each month, 1 or 2 phone calls with me each month. And then at like the top level, you have your own personal empowerment ritual performed by me on your behalf every month too. So that can be found in my Patreon. So it's really just
Cool.
my YouTube channel From the Light of the Darkness
Mm-hmm.
or my website or my Patreon. Those are the three places you can find me there.
Cool. Yeah, no, those are great
Yeah.
links. I hope people that watch this check that out, and I'll continue to check it out too. Like I said, I've seen some of your
Thanks.
YouTube and stuff, but yeah, but I really admire and appreciate that the work that you're doing, and I am glad that you have embraced this path so wholeheartedly and are so strong in it. Because I've encountered some people before who are not steadfast in it. Like there's just some. I don't know. I don't want to put any like say anything bad about those people, but there's just like in lack of genuine lack of authenticity, a lack of true embracing, and I hope that those that are watching this too, and that have watched this, if you've made it this far, have a different understanding of these spirits in your mind, and not to associate them with something so dark or evil, or not to be touched, or something that's going to ultimately ruin your life. The spirits are not going to do that. Of course there will be tests along the way, like we said, if we do embrace this path, but most of the time it's ourselves ruining our own lives if that's what's happening, and it's ourselves that can also get us out of it with, the help, the assistance of some spirits at times. And I do really also love what you said, one more thing about what you said a while back about recognizing that, in religion, you have to access God, or you're told to access God through another person, but that's not the case. Like, we are God. We have that ability within us, to create the reality we want, and we are more powerful than we even realize.
Yes.
And yeah, and so I think it's important to be having these conversations, these sorts of conversations, especially with someone like you, to who is really truly in this. You really believe what you're offering, I can sense, and have this sort of army, not army in the sense of like going to war, but like this support behind you of the spirits, and that it's not to be messed with, like, not that you're going to like inflict harm on people by any means, but that you have been through the trials and the tribulations and the struggles and the this and that to get you to this point of almost like an unfuckwithable energy, and which makes you powerful and strong, and not to say that like no one else can get there. We all can get there.
Absolutely.
But we have to stay, really believe in what we're doing, really believe in our calling, even if other people don't support it, even if sometimes it doesn't look so pretty, even if sometimes we are at the bottom of that pit and we don't know a way out, but eventually it will get better and we will rise above it, like you said, like the phoenix from the ashes metaphor. And so it's been such a pleasure to connect with you finally and do this video, and I hope it's not the last time we talk, because there's so many more questions I have, that I want to pick your brain. Maybe I'll get some work done from you or something, and I hope other people do as well. But is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap up and close, or?
Just, I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been great talking with you. And I think my spirit team are certainly happy about that. And thank you for, giving us this place here to share this with you and your
Of
audience.
course. Of course. Yeah, you're welcome. I just got chills. I think the spirits do enjoy when it's talked about too. And I enjoy it, and I'm glad hopefully you enjoyed it as well. And I hope that everyone that has watched this so far has also enjoyed it. So again, thank you, JD, and best, blessings with everything that you're doing. You have my support and stuff, and we'll talk again. So.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, of course. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for watching this video. If you made it till the end, check out JD's stuff. Subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed. Like this video, all that, and stay tuned for more religion to occult interviews where people can tell their stories. So until next time, guys, and thank you again, JD. All right. Peace, everybody. Bye bye.